What's the worst thing you have ever done? When I was a senior in high school, I was asked out by a girl to the senior prom. I didn't know her, but I was told she had a crush on me and decided to be brave and ask me. She was very nice, very sweet, but not especially attractive and a bit heavy. She told me that she'd buy the tickets, we could go Dutch to dinner, etc., but she thought we'd have a good time. We talked once or twice and I figured I'm single again, so why not? One day before the prom I got asked by my best friend to go on a skiing weekend with his family the weekend of prom. His older brother couldn't get back from college in time, so they wanted me to go with them instead. Free skiing for 3 days, free cabin, and I got to hang with my best friend and his family. Without thinking I said sure. And promptly called the girl and told her change of plans, sorry, but I was going to go skiing instead. I told my mom what happened and I thought for a moment that my mom was going to kill me. She destroyed me. Just flayed the emotional skin off me for a good hour and then told me exactly what I was going to do. Which included driving down to the girl's house and grovel for hurting her feelings. I've always been ashamed of that incident, but it did make a lasting mark on me. I never wanted to ever feel that shame again, and I think I learned to be a better person afterwards. I was 11 years old. Asked my grandma, who was raising me, to buy me an Oreo McFlurry from Dairy Queen, while she was running errands. She didn't want to, because it was out of her way. I persisted and she continued to say no. 2 hours later she came back and stopped her car at the end of the driveway and paused for a while, like she was going to back up and do more errands. I came out to see what was up and she rolled the window down and handed me an Oreo McFlurry with the biggest smile on her face. I took it and threw it down on the lawn because I was a hyper prick and was pissed that she said no earlier. I remember her smile going to a "what the hell" face after I threw it. She died of cancer a year later. I'm 24 now and to this day that is my saddest memory ever. She chose to raise me after she had already brought up her own kids, and was the best person ever. I'm so sad that this is the first thing that comes to mind when I think about her. I'm a piece of human excrement. I miss you, Mama, sorry. When we were 10, my best friend and I were always bullied by this kid who lived in our complex. He was one of those sneak bullies too, who acted so lovely around adults but was a holy terror when they weren't around. So one day after he held my friend down and made him eat dog poop, we hatched a plan to put him out of commission. We found a Windex bottle and filled it with a bunch of different cleaning agents, one of them being bleach. Then we went looking for him. When we found him, he asked my friend if he was still hungry and wanted some more. And when he came over to us, I squirted him right in the face with the bottle. A good few squeezes worth. He ended up going to the hospital with chemical burns and lost all of the sight in one eye and partial sight in the other. He Facebooked me a few years back and apologized for how he had treated us, and actually thanked me for what we did to him. He said it was a real eye-opener, his pun, not mine, and he now works exclusively with blind children and says it's incredibly rewarding. The worst thing I have ever done was pretty recent, and I'm trying like hell to figure out a way to fix it without destroying my life. Long story short, I cheated on my wife. How I did it makes it so much more terrible. To put this all in perspective, my wife is very close to her brother. They are fraternal twins and have been inseparable their whole lives. Because of this I have gotten to know my brother-in-law and his wife quite well. One night my brother-in-law was out of town on business, so we had his wife over for dinner. My wife got called into work, she is a nurse in an ER, and so me and my sister-in-law were sitting at the house along talking and drinking wine by my pool. After a few glasses some horse playing lead to her falling in. While her clothes were in the dryer we sat and talked with her in nothing but a towel. I don't know how it got started since we had gotten pretty drunk, but the towel ended up coming off and the next thing I know we were having fun. I wish we could just pretend it never happened and get on with our lives, but unfortunately she got pregnant. Her and her husband had been trying for a while, but apparently his equipment hadn't been up to the task. He had been gone for a week by the time me and her did this together, so we are fairly sure it is mine. He was with her when she got morning sickness and made her take a pregnancy test. He is out of his mind excited and has already told everybody. We have somehow kept our cool so far and nobody suspects anything, but sooner or later it will come out. Especially since my wife and her brother are Asian and both me and my sister-in-law are white. She is now 4 months along, and to compound things more my wife is currently 3 months pregnant. I don't know what to do, I can't sleep and every day is torture while I wait for my life to implode around me. Early this year I found out my fiancée was cheating on me. I dumped her right away, even though every molecule in my body wanted to be with her. Anyway, 2 months later I get a call from her. Her dad had passed away that night. I was genuinely devastated. He always treated me like family and I treated him like a second dad. Roll forward 6 months and I had been through every emotion about her that you can name at some point. But I had never really blown my top at her. She called me up a few months back, asking about a holiday we had booked together just before we broke up because she wanted to know if it was possible to change the name on the tickets to be her and her boyfriend, the guy who she cheated with. Since I paid with my card, I was the one who had to change any details. I'm normally a very calm, passive guy. I think I can count on one hand the number of times I have fully blown a fuse at someone or something. But this was when I unleashed 8 months of built-up anger at her. I told her to F off. I'd rather lose all the money on the holiday than help her take her new boyfriend away on a holiday we planned together. She started the usual argument talk of, "You're a piece of poop, leaving you was the best thing I ever did," etc. And out of nowhere, without thinking about it, I yelled, "At least I still have my dad, you effin'," and promptly hung up the phone before she could respond. I then realized what day it was, exactly 6 months since her dad passed away. I felt sick. That was just not me. Nobody has ever made me feel that angry in my life. Understandable, nobody has ever made me feel as happy, or depressed as she had made me at various points. But the weird thing was that after that day, I felt a hell of a lot better about myself. It was a turning point where I finally let my anger out and could move on. My best friend and his father were in a car accident 5 years ago. We were both 16. His dad was declared dead at the scene and he ended up in a coma for 12 weeks. I spent a lot of time at the hospital and his house, and as a result, with his mom. A couple of weeks after the accident, she just broke down completely as she was driving me home from the hospital. She told me she couldn't be alone that night and begged me to stay with her for a couple of hours. We went back to the house and she poured me a glass of wine. While my friend's life was hanging in the balance, his dad just buried, I was having fun with his mom. I had always had a thing for her. I mean, she was my friend's hot mom, so I obliged every time she instigated, which was a lot. This stopped immediately after he was released from hospital and we avoid each other now. I was walking in a big city, in an area unfamiliar to me, an evening this summer, a few hours before sundown. It was in a residential area, about a 20-minute walk from the city center. There wasn't a whole lot of people on the street and only a little bit of traffic. Now, onto the actual event. As I walk, a car drives by me and turns in on a street I just passed. The car is going faster than is safe, and I hear a young woman screaming something from the half-open passenger door. I think crazy buttholes to myself and keep walking, as did everyone else who was out. It was only later that night, when I thought back on it, that I realized something. The woman had screamed help. I was mortified. The fact that neither I, nor anyone else on the street did a single thing to help her made me feel sick. As far as I know, no one checked up on the situation, no one called the cops, no one did anything. The worst thing is I have no idea what happened to the girl. She could have been victim of a kidnapping for all I know. When I was 6 years old, my buddy and I decided to put a boulder on a seesaw and see if we can make it catapult. I was a weak kid and couldn't get a proper grip on it. I accidentally dropped it and my friend's hands got caught underneath the boulder on cement ground. He started screaming and I got so scared I just ran away. He stayed like that for a few hours. I took a year between high school and college to study abroad, expand my horizons. I met a lot of awesome people of all ages in my study program. One was a newly married 25-year-old woman. I was 18 at the time. Somehow, she and I discovered that we like each other. We had fun almost every day for about 5 months. She sent me pictures, all without her husband's knowledge. Fast forward 2 years, she and her husband are divorced and she still clings to me. Although she claims that her divorce was the culmination of many marital problems, I can't help but feel like I ruined this woman's marriage, and maybe her life, by thinking with my member. I was walking downtown one night after leaving the bar, around midnight, and I had to walk a few blocks to my car. Parking is awful in the city on a Friday night. Well, halfway there, when there wasn't anyone around, someone comes up behind me, taps me on the shoulder and tells me to give him my wallet, or it will be bad, as he had his hand deep in his pocket. I don't know if he had a gun on him, but all I could think about was getting stabbed or shot. So I preempted him, reached for my wallet and grabbed my knife, put my hand in his face and did something to him I regret until today, and ran as hard as I could for probably a mile. Never told anyone, never called the cops as it seemed like that would put me in a worse spot. No idea what happened to him.